Hello, Frank Sinatra lovers. Welcome to Frank Sinatra, The Untold Legacy. I'm your host, and today I'm going to tell you about the chairman of the board's unknown, shocking obsession. Something strange happened at Frank's funeral in 1998. When the funeral director was preparing Sinatra's jacket, he found something in his pocket, exactly 10 dimes. Shiny, clean, as if they were freshly minted. This wasn't a coincidence. Old Blue Eyes had carried exactly 10 dimes in his pocket for 60 years, every single day, without fail. He was making millions of dollars, was the king of Vegas, wore the world's most expensive suits. But those 10 dimes never left his side. Why? The answer to this question was hidden back in 1938 on a snowy March night in the streets of Hoboken. That night changed Frank's life forever. And what he experienced that night condemned him to live with this habit for 60 years. This story isn't just about Sinatra's unknown side. This story is one of the secret keys to understanding how he became such a powerful performer. March 19th, 1938. Saturday night. Hoboken, New Jersey. The streets are wet. The air carries a mix of gardenia and industrial smoke. This is Frank Sinatra's home neighborhood, where Italian immigrants lived. A neighborhood of poor but proud people. 23-year-old Francis Albert Sinatra, not yet. Frank, everyone calls him Frankie, is sitting on the edge of his bed, in the one-room apartment on the second floor of the 3-story building on Monroe Street. In his hands is a crumpled piece of paper. On it, a scrawled phone number, Mayfair 7 3421. This number could open the door to Frank's dreams. It belongs to Harry Mayerson, talent scout for the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. More importantly, the man who selects singers to perform on radio shows. Frank's heart is beating like crazy, because Harry Mayerson had agreed to give him a chance. With one condition: Frank had to call him before 11 p.m. sharp. If he missed this time, the opportunity would go to someone else. Be punctual, Harry had said. Business is business. Even if you call 1 minute after 11, I won't pick up the phone. Frank counted the change in his pocket. For the third time, 1 nickel, 2 pennies, total 7 cents. But calling New York cost 10 cents. It's 10:15. Frank has 45 minutes. The nearest public phone booth is by Corner Market, 2 blocks away. Normally a 5-minute walk, but Frank has only one thing on his mind: how to find 3 more cents. His first stop is Luigi's barbershop. Luigi is an old friend of his father Marty, has known Frank since childhood, but the shop is closed with domani tomanio. Frank bangs on the windows. Frank bangs on the windows. Luigi, Luigi, he shouts. A light comes on upstairs, then goes off. Luigi is home but won't open the door. Maybe he didn't hear Frank's voice. Next stop, Marcello's grocery store. Frank is running now, out of breath. Marcello's shutters are also closed. Frank tries the back door, locked. The side window, same thing. Marcello, sono io Frankie. He shouts in Italian, "It's me, Frankie." No sound. 10:30. Frank is panicking. He's soaked in sweat. He thinks of his father, firefighter Marty Sinatra, but he's on duty tonight, at the station. There's no time to go there and back. His mother Dolly is a powerful woman with influence in the neighborhood. Everyone knows her, but she's not home either at this hour. Saturday nights she's always at the Democratic Club for political meetings. 10:40. Frank's last chance finding anyone he knows in the neighborhood. He starts running up and down Monroe Street, knocking on every door, looking at every window. He goes to Mrs. Colombo's house. No one there. He knocks on the Murphy family's door. The lights are on but they won't open it. Maybe they don't trust a young man knocking at this hour. Frank desperately checks his pockets. Maybe there's a forgotten cent at the bottom of some pocket. But no, just those 7 cents and some crumbs. 10:45, 15 minutes left. Frank runs to the phone booth. Maybe the operator will have mercy. Maybe she'll let him talk for 7 cents. The phone booth is old and dirty. It smells like cigarettes inside. The windows are foggy. Frank picks up the receiver. Noticing his hands are shaking, he drops the 7 cents into the slot. "Operator," says a woman's voice. "I want Mayfair 7's 3421 in Manhattan." Frank says, a pleading tone in his voice. "Long distance is 10 cents, sir." Frank's world comes crashing down. "Please, this is very important. Just 3 cents more. I'll pay you later, I promise." "I'm sorry, sir. The rate is 10 cents. I can't connect without 10 cents. Please." Frank is almost crying. "This is my life. If you give me a chance, 10 cents, sir. There's nothing else I can do." The line went dead. Frank doesn't hang up the receiver. He holds it, as if he might hear Harry Mason's voice. But of course, only the annoying dial tone comes through. 10:55, last 5 minutes. Frank collapses inside the phone booth. He puts his head in his hands and starts crying. A 23-year-old strong, ambitious young man is crying, because this isn't just a phone call. This is his chance to realize his dreams. The Tommy Dorsey Orchestra is the most famous orchestra in the world. Working with them means playing on the radio. Playing on the radio means becoming famous. Frank lifts his head, looking out through the phone booth window. Hoboken streets are empty and cold. In the distance, New York's lights are visible. Not the big city, the city of opportunities. But for Frank, those lights are unreachable right now. 11 o'clock. Just then a car passes by. The man inside opens the window, throws something. Frank looks to see what it is. A few cents. The man was probably emptying his car's ashtray and the cents came out with it. Frank runs over, collecting the cents. Exactly 4 cents. If he called right now, but it's too late. It's 11:05. He knows Harry Mason won't answer the phone. The next day, Frank was buying a newspaper at Corner Market when he overheard the man next to him talking. He was talking about Harry Mason choosing a new singer. His name was Dick Haymes. Frank's world collapsed once again. Dick Haymes was his age, an ambitious singer like him, and Dick Haymes had answered his phone before 11 p.m. That night, as Frank lay in his bed, the same scene kept replaying in his head alone in the phone booth, missing the biggest opportunity of his life. Because of 3 cents, the helplessness he felt. This feeling of helplessness began to eat away at Frank from the inside. He swore to himself that he would never face such a situation again. He would never again miss an important phone call because of money. At first he just started carrying 10 cents in his pocket. Spare change, he told himself. But over time this obsession grew. What if a phone call ran long and the line got cut? What if the operator connected him wrong? What if he needed to call the number again? 10 cents meant 1 phone call. But that wasn't enough for Frank. 10 dimes meant 10 phone calls. This meant security. Ironically, the opportunity that changed Frank's fate came 6 months later. But this time he was ready. When trumpet artist Harry James said he wanted to hear him, Frank immediately ran to the nearest phone booth with the 10 cents in his pocket. This phone call changed Frank's life. He joined the Harry James Orchestra, then started working with Tommy Dorsey. But he could never forget what he experienced that March night in 1938. In the 1940s, Frank Sinatra was already famous. He had won millions of hearts with his song "I'll Never Smile Again," but he still carried 10 cents in his pocket. When his friends started noticing this, they found it strange. Dean Martin once joked, "Frank, you're a star now. Why do you still carry change for the phone?" Frank had just laughed, but was secretly bothered, because this was something no one could understand. This was about control. It was about being prepared, about never feeling helpless again. In the 1950s, Frank Sinatra was undisputedly the king of Hollywood. He had won an Oscar for From Here to Eternity. His music career was at its peak, but those 10 cents were still in his pocket. This was no longer just about phones. Frank's need for control began to emerge in every area of his life. Before going on stage at concerts, he would always count the cents in his pocket, checking that they were in place. Once in Las Vegas, on a night he was about to go on stage, he realized he only had 8 cents in his pocket. The show was starting in 10 minutes, but Frank panicked. He told his assistant, "Get me 2 more cents right now. Mr. Sinatra, you're a millionaire. Why for 2 cents? Get them now," Frank had shouted. That night's concert almost got cancelled over 2 cents. He was married to Ava Gardner at the time. Ava couldn't understand this obsession. "Frank, there are mobile phones now. Why do you still carry those cents?" she had asked. Frank never told her about that 1938 night, the helplessness in the phone booth, the missed opportunity, because these were a man's most vulnerable moments. Frank's 10-cent obsession wasn't just paranoia. This was what psychologists call emotional insurance, the need to never experience a traumatic experience again, and to take all precautions for it. When mobile phones started coming out in the 1960s, Frank used them too, but he still wouldn't give up his cents, because according to him, technology wasn't reliable, but public phone booths and 10 cents were always there. Frank's close friend Sammy Davis Jr. said in an interview years later, "I've known Frank for 50 years. I've never seen him without those cents in his pocket. I asked him once, he just laughed and changed the subject." This is actually familiar to many people. Maybe you always carry extra pens in your bag, your phone's battery never drops below 20%, or you always arrive 15 minutes early to meetings. These are all types of emotional insurance, the need not to repeat bad experiences we've had in the past. Frank's 10-cent obsession wasn't limited to just carrying them in his pocket. These were special cents, all from the same year, 1962, and all in perfect condition. Frank kept them in a special box, checking each one individually every morning when he put them in his pocket. Why 1962? Because that was the year Frank made one of the biggest comebacks of his career. He had returned to the music world with his Rang-a-Ding-Ding album. Those cents weren't just phone money for him, they were like lucky charms. Rosa, the maid who cleaned Frank's house, had kept this secret for years. When Frank woke up in the morning, his first task was to count the cents in his pocket. If one was missing, he would turn the whole house upside down. Rosa had once accidentally vacuumed up a cent while cleaning. She had never seen Frank so panicked. "Rosa, where is that cent? That's my luck," he had shouted. He searched through the vacuum bag for 2 hours, couldn't stop until he found the cent. In the 1990s, Frank was aging, but the cent obsession continued. He rarely performed on stage anymore, sang at occasional concerts, but those 10 cents in his pocket were still there. When Frank was hospitalized in 1998, doctors noticed the cents in his pocket when they removed his jacket. When a nurse wanted to remove them, Frank said a note in his weak voice, "They stay there." In Frank's final days, when his daughter Nancy visited him, her father made a strange request. "Nancy, after I'm gone, those cents, bury them with me." Nancy was surprised. "Dad, these are just cents. Why are they so important?" Frank had closed his eyes, remained silent for a long time. Then, in a very quiet voice, "One night in 1938, it all started that night," he had said. But he didn't tell the rest of the story. At Frank Sinatra's funeral on May 14, 1998, at Desert Memorial Park, there were very few people. His family, close friends, and of course Dean Martin's son Dean Paul. When the funeral director found those 10 cents in Frank's pocket while preparing his final outfit, he asked Nancy what he should do. Nancy remembered her father's last wish. "Leave them there," she said. "Dad wanted it that way." When Dean Paul became curious about this situation, Nancy told him the story. That 1938 night, the helplessness in the phone booth, the obsession that lasted 60 years. Dean Paul was shocked. So Uncle Frank lived the trauma of that night for 60 years. Yes, Nancy had said, Dad never forgot, and he never forgave himself. Frank Sinatra's story is actually about all of us. One of the deepest truths of human psychology is this: sometimes the smallest traumas in our lives create our biggest fears. For Frank, those 3 cents weren't just about money. This was the fear of losing control, the fear of being helpless, the fear of missing opportunities. Maybe you've had similar experiences. Have you ever been late to an interview and never forgotten? Now arriving 20 minutes early to every meeting? Have you ever been caught unprepared for an exam and now check everything 3 times? These are normal. The human brain is programmed to remember danger and prevent its repetition. Frank's 10 cents were the extreme version of this, but the most beautiful part of this story is this: despite this fear, Frank succeeded. His trauma didn't hinder him, it just made him more careful. So there you have it, folks. The end of this amazing story that Frank Sinatra kept secret for 60 years. When Old Blue Eyes died in 1998, those 10 cents were in his pocket, but he also left behind timeless songs like My Way, Fly Me to the Moon, New York, New York, and memories living in the hearts of millions of Sinatra fans. Maybe if Frank had made that phone call that night in 1938, his life would have been different. But maybe that trauma was what made him such a strong, determined artist. Because you see, the chairman of the board's greatness didn't come just from his voice. He was also a man who never gave up even in life's toughest moments, who was always prepared, and those 10 cents were the symbol of that. So what do you think? Was Frank's obsession with those 10 cents more powerful than any song he ever sang? Does this story change how you see the man behind the legend? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button. If you love these deep dives into the untold stories behind Frank Sinatra, subscribe, because the real stories, the ones that happen after the curtain falls, are always the most powerful of all.